Hello, students. So, watching this, then that means that you read the fake news assignment instructions and you are still confused about what to do. And that is fine. I was also a student of that persuasion myself, if my memory serves me correct. So I totally know where you're coming from. But just make sure you do a second close read of the instructions, because I promise you that there's enough information in there to complete this assignment. Still, this is going to be, I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to kind of walk through it step by step. Okay. So this is uh, here's the assignment page. You could read this yourself. I think that where it starts getting a little bit more into the nitty gritty is these requirements right here. So make sure that you are aware of the word count requirement, the sources, the number of sources, the formatting requirements. Those things I am assuming that you are at a level in your education that you can look those things up. I have to look up MLA formatting every single time. Okay. So we are going to talk about, and so those ones, I think those are so straightforward that if you have specific questions about them, you got to let me know. Okay. Um, but I think this is where we want to start really focusing a lot of our energy in explaining ourselves. Okay. So I'm giving you the organization for the paper throughout here. So this represents the organization that I'm looking for in the paper. Think about organization and formatting in assignments like this as a way of assisting me, because it helps me to kind of like get into a rhythm as I'm going through these assignments. But in the very least, but even more than that, I should say, like being able to format things according to a required organization that somebody gives you, I think is a valuable skill. All right. So remember to always have an introduction to your work, letting them know what's happening. But there are two main sections in the body of the work. And so the fourth point is just the conclusion. But take a look here. How I have this organized is that there's two main sections. See, number two and number three here represent that. The first section is about understanding fake news, and the second section is analyzing an example of fake news. So this first section right here, there are three parts. The first one being defining fake news. Now, everyone thinks it's like, well, that's only going to take a sentence. Not really. So take a look. I'm just going to open up a brand new bar, and I'm going to ask for a fake news definition. Oh, English, you can, but we're just going to do a fake news definition. I think my settings make it. All right, so take a look. The top result from dictionary.com is a parody that represents current events. Whereas the Cambridge University says false stories that appear to be news. And then there is UC Santa Barbara that says news articles that are intentionally and verifiably false. These are not the same definition. You can't give all of these definitions and then say, hey, you sort it out. No, I'm asking you, based on all the variants in the different definitions of fake news, which one is the best and explain why. That should take a paragraph. Got it? See that? Like, so you have to, like, there is no answer to this. You have to make an argument about what the definition of fake news is, and there are a lot of options out there. Not only that, but you can kind of craft your own if you think that it is superior to the ones that you find out there. You always have to cite your sources, no matter what. All right. Just to let you know, if you have comments while this is happening live, you could just throw them up in the comments and I can see them and I can address them. All right. All right. All right. So the first one, defining fake news, you saw that. All right. Compare fake news to other types of news. And what do I mean by that? Opinion, uh, satire. Okay, here we go. Compare the terms news, opinion news, satire news, and fake news. That's the main thrust of the second part in the first one. All right. So I'm going to show you when I get to the example. I'm going to show why that is. So my point on this one is that you have a definition, and that definition implies certain things about other other genres that are adjacent to news in general. Just like there's news, and then there's opinion and commentary and editorializing, right? And there's discussions about the ethical ways to do that. There's satire news and fake news, and so all these terms. What does your definition do to those other terms now? Okay. So compare them, and that's just a comparison. Like, so in particular, does your definition of fake news include satire news, or is satire news not fake news? According to dictionary.com, it is, but not so much according to UC Santa Barbara. Okay. So that's what the second part is. And then this third one, remember, we're still in the section one, right? We have two main sections, and these are subsections. So third subsection of the understanding fake news section is you're going to give an explanation about how to spot fake news. Now, this is oftentimes, represented in a numbered list. It's like, here's the 7 things that you should do to check whether or not something is fake news. And not only that, but I think that there are those lists that exist out there in the world. If you want to use them, and you believe that somebody has already solved this problem, just cite them as a source when you do that. Okay. But you have to still explain what they mean by it. And so if it is like, it's like the 5 things that you need to do in order to spot fake news, you need to explain what each of those steps are, not just the title of each step, but like explain what you mean. Okay. So that deals with the first section. Now we're going to do an example of fake news. And so first, you have to identify an example of actual fake news. Listen to this. I want this to be recent. Okay. I'm not sure that it's okay. I'm asking for this to be recent. That would be like within the last year, maybe, like, so like 2022, and of course 2023 if you want to. So something that happened then. Okay. So does it have to be an article? No, it could be any sort of anything, but you have to be able to identify the source of it, right? You have to be able to point to it. Sometimes these sources are what's known as archived because people take them down. All you need to do is prove that it existed, all right? And so that requires evidence, that requires some sort of source citation. That's a hard sentence. That takes some sort of source citation in order to prove that it existed, all right? And that means that it can't just be like, oh, my friend told me this rumor. It's like, okay, that it has to be based on something, all right? It has to be based on some sort of publication, some sort of post that got out there. And I'm looking for you to identify what the central claim of the fake news, or the central one that is false. Talk about how widely it was shared. So the wider that the fake news was shared, the better your topic is. Okay, I'm going to show you some ways to look that up. And also any significant effects or outcomes. And I'm going to show you an example of that right now. Okay, so I'm going to use an old example because I don't want to take any of your topics. Okay, if you and somebody else have the same topic, it's okay. It's okay. Just make sure that you're, not turning in the same paper, if you know what I mean. Okay. Okay. So let's take a look at this. Oh, then you have to apply your method for identifying fake news. So in your method, you're like, okay, first look at the URL. Does it seem kind of sketchy? It's like, then look up the source, then look up the author, then compare what they're saying with other publications. Like if those are your steps, then when you find an example, you should be applying those steps, the same steps in subsection 3 of understanding fake news. You should be applying it in subsection 2 of analyzing an example of fake news. What do I mean by that? Well, I happen to know of a piece of fake information. Kim Jong-un was named, here's my example, my old example. Kim Jong Un named The Onion's sexiest man alive for 2012. So this is 10 years old, right? Now, if you know anything about The Onion, you know that they are clearly satire. Everything that they do is satire, and that their main sort of source of subscriptions are people that are enjoy satire, and but in news format. Okay, so this in and of itself, you could be analyzing as a piece of fake news. It depends on your definition, right? Does your definition include satire or does it not? And so if it does, then you're like, this is clearly fake news, because The Onion is kind of making fun of the idea of naming anyone sexiest man alive, because would you ever name the dictator of North Korea sexiest man alive? Like that is ironic. That's an ironic situation. Okay, and so The Onion is satire, and you could do your entire case on this one, and the argument would be, it's like, oh, satire is fake news. This is an example of that fake news, but it gets even better than that. Here is NPR is a very reputable news source. So I'm here on NPR, reputable news source, and they did a story that the article that I just showed you got taken seriously by uh, People's Daily. It's the Chinese newspaper. It's one of their legit newspapers. They ran it, and they even added a 55 photo slideshow of the dictator. So when I'm talking about um, any significant outcomes or effects, that's an example of a significant outcome or effect that a legitimate news source legitimate, you know what I mean, but a news source um, that claims legitimacy, does not claim to be satire, right? Uh, Ran with a satirical story. Is that fake news? I can make the argument that it is. And so in my paper, maybe I'm going to make that argument that The Onion wasn't fake news, but the People's Daily was fake news. See that? And then I could, and I'm like, all right, so how do we know that this is fake news? And you go back and you apply your step-by-step explanation to that. You can choose any topic you want. I do not want you to choose the Kim Jong Un sexiest man alive one. I don't want you choosing anything 10 years old. I want it to be like 1 year old, right? I mean, if um, everyone talks about how fake news is all over the place, so that it should make it easy to find, right? If that's the case. Now, uh, just make sure that you have some sort of indication about what the original post was, and you have to explain um, why it was fake news. Invariably, you're going to have to explain perhaps the logical fallacy that was involved. Like if you are basing this off of false authority, for instance, in the case of um, the Onion, right? The Onion is not does not name sexiest man ever. They did it this one time as a joke, right? And so if you are claiming them to be a legitimate authority when they're not, then that's the fallacy of reliance on false authority. And so you can point out the fallacy that is happening, and that explains why it is fake news. Okay, that's another possibility. Listen, if you got any questions, eh, I'm a message away on Canvas, right? And so just give me a message. The reason I'm making this stream right now is to help somebody out who said that they needed it. But I thought, like I could see that there's more than one person watching right now, so definitely needed a little bit of additional support, perhaps. If you feel like you're kind of under the gun, just just let me know that you watched this. Make any reference to Idiocracy in your message, and then let me know that you actually watched all 15 minutes of this. Just make some sort of look up Idiocracy, make a reference in your request for an extension if you need it. All right, deal? Okay. Listen, contact me regardless if you need anything, but don't overthink this. This assignment is like, I seriously, if you just follow the instructions that are on there, then you're fine. You get to pick your own topic, just pick one that's recent. All right. All right. See you later.